Last night, you probably dreamed about something. Maybe it made no sense. A staircase that led nowhere, a conversation with someone who's been dead for years, a test you never studied for. And when you woke up, you did what almost everyone in the modern world does. You forgot it within minutes and moved on with your day.
But for most of human history, that dream would not have been forgotten. It would have been carried to the elders, discussed at length, sometimes for hours, sometimes acted on immediately, no matter how strange it sounded, no matter how much it disrupted the plans for the day. You live in one of the first few generations of humans who treat dreams as noise. For nearly all of human history, they were treated as information.
Here's where it gets strange. In some Iroquois communities, dreams weren't just interesting. They were considered a direct window into the soul's hidden wishes, and ignoring one could make you sick. The anthropologist Anthony Wallace documented this belief system in detail. If you dreamed you needed something, tradition held that your community should try to get it for you, sometimes immediately, sometimes through elaborate rituals designed to satisfy a wish your waking mind didn't even know it had. A person might dream of a specific object, a canoe, a particular meal, a piece of clothing, and their neighbors would go out of their way to provide it, because leaving that wish unmet was believed to bring real harm.
Think about that for a second. An entire society organized itself around the idea that your unconscious mind knew something your conscious mind didn't, and that the debt had to be paid. Now, compare that to how you treat a dream. You wake up, you check your phone, 30 seconds later, the dream is gone, dissolved into whatever your first meeting is about. This wasn't unique to one culture. It shows up almost everywhere you look, if you look far back enough. In ancient Egypt, dreams were considered messages from the gods, so important that priests known as masters of the secret things specialized in interpreting them for a fee. A surviving papyrus, now called the Chester Beatty Dream Book, lists specific dreams next to their meanings, hundreds of them, organized almost like a reference manual. Dreaming of your teeth falling out, dreaming of drowning in the Nile, dreaming of eating crocodile meat. Each one had a verdict, good or bad, and what it meant for your fate in the months ahead. Some temples even had people sleep inside them on purpose, in a practice historians call incubation, hoping the gods would visit them with an answer to a specific question while they slept.
In Mesopotamia, one of the oldest surviving stories in human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is driven forward by dreams, not decisions. Gilgamesh dreams of a falling star before he ever meets Enkidu, and his mother interprets it as a sign of the friendship to come. Later, before major battles, he dreams again, and those dreams shape what he does next. The plot of the oldest story we have doesn't move because a character chooses something. It moves because a dream told him what to choose.
By the time you reached the Roman Empire, dream interpretation had become something close to a formal discipline. A writer named Artemidorus compiled an entire manual called the Oneirocritica, cataloging thousands of dream symbols and their meanings, some collected by traveling from town to town and literally asking ordinary people, market vendors, soldiers, farmers, what their dreams had predicted and whether it came true. He wasn't writing fiction. He was writing what amounted to a field guide because enough people needed one that it became worth writing down.
Travel to Australia and you find something even more extreme. Many Aboriginal Australian cultures hold a concept often translated as the dreaming or dream time, though anthropologists note that translation flattens something far bigger than the English word dream suggests. In this worldview, the dreaming isn't just where ancestral spirits once shaped the land, the rivers, the animals, and the laws people live by. It's also still accessible in the present through actual dreams. A dream wasn't treated as a private, internal event happening only inside one person's skull. It was treated as a door that opened onto something ongoing and shared, something the whole community could, in a sense, step into together.
Songs, ceremonies, and even maps of the land itself were passed down through generations using knowledge that originated, according to tradition, in dreams.
Notice what's common across every single one of these cultures, separated by oceans, deserts, and thousands of years, with no contact between them. The Iroquois, the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Romans, the Aboriginal Australians. None of them treated a dream the way you treat one. None of them let it evaporate in the time it takes to check a notification. So why did nearly every ancient civilization, separated by oceans and thousands of years, independently decide that dreams mattered this much? Here's the twist. It's not because ancient people were more superstitious than you. It's because they didn't have the modern excuse to ignore what their brain was doing at night.
Your brain doesn't shut off when you sleep. During REM sleep specifically, it becomes almost as electrically active as it is while you're awake, sorting through the day's memories, running emotional simulations, testing scenarios your waking mind never had time for. Sleep researchers like Matthew Walker have shown that this isn't wasted time, it's processing time. Your brain is quietly solving problems, regulating fear responses, and stitching new memories into old ones while you're completely unconscious of the work being done.
Ancient people didn't know the neuroscience behind any of that, but they noticed the pattern on the outside of it. Dreams sometimes echoed real anxieties before those anxieties became obvious. Dreams sometimes seemed to predict outcomes, simply because the dreamer's mind had already noticed warning signs their waking brain hadn't consciously registered yet. A hunter who dreamed of a predator the night before a bad hunt wasn't psychic. His mind had likely picked up on tracks, smells, or subtle changes in the herd's behavior that his conscious brain hadn't flagged as important, yet his sleeping brain had.
So dreams weren't mystical nonsense to ancient societies. They were an early, unpolished form of pattern recognition, dressed up in the only language available at the time, the language of gods, spirits, and omens. You do the same pattern recognition every single night. Your brain is still doing it right now, every time you close your eyes. What's changed is not the process itself. What's changed is whether you bother to listen to the output. And there's a real cost to not listening. Some modern sleep researchers argue that dismissing dreams too quickly may cause people to miss early emotional signals their mind is trying to process. Things like unresolved stress or conflicts the waking brain hasn't consciously worked through yet.
Ancient dream interpreters were often wrong about the specifics, and that's worth being honest about. A dream about drowning didn't actually predict a flood. A falling star didn't literally forecast a friendship. But underneath the superstition, they were onto something real. They were paying close attention to their own minds in a way you almost never do. Consider what it actually took in most of these societies to have a dream taken seriously. You had to remember it well enough to describe it out loud. You had to sit with someone, a parent, an elder, a priest, and walk through it in detail. You had to accept that the conversation might change what you did that day, who you spoke to, what risks you took, what you avoided. None of that happens by accident. It happens because a culture builds space for it, deliberately, morning after morning, generation after generation.
You have no equivalent ritual. Nothing in your morning is built to protect that 30-second window before the details slip away. If anything, the opposite is true. Your phone is designed, quite intentionally, to fill that exact gap in your attention before your own mind gets the chance to. You wake up. You silence the alarm before it finishes its second beep. You reach for your phone before your eyes have even adjusted to the light in the room. And in that half second, the only real evidence of what your brain spent 8 hours quietly working through disappears, unread and unexamined. Gone before you even remember it existed. Ancient humans didn't have therapy. They didn't have neuroscience journals or sleep labs. What they had instead was a ritual, a moment every single morning where the community sat down together
and asked, "What did your mind tell you last night?" And whatever the answer, it was taken seriously enough to shape the day that followed.
You don't have to build a temple to your dreams. You don't need priests or omens or a papyrus full of symbols. But maybe, before you reach for the phone tomorrow morning, you give your own mind 30 seconds of the attention every human society before you assumed it deserved. Because long before you learned to scroll first thing in the morning, your ancestors learned something you're only now starting to forget. The most important messages your mind sends you don't always arrive while you're awake.